Welcome to the Talking Toughness series of podcasts, where we examine the mental toughness concept with guests from a wide range of sectors, illustrating that our mental approach to what happens to us and around us matters for all of us. Our guests come from the worlds of business and public service, education, social mobility, sport, and health. They all share their experiences and their observations about the factors that have enabled them to survive and to thrive on their journey through life. Many guests have gone further and incorporated the concept into what they do as coaches, trainers, managers, and leaders, helping others to thrive in their turn. Their experiences are valuable to those of us who strive to do the same. John, how are we today?
I'm very good, actually. Yeah, my little girl's just started Montessori school, like first day of play school. So, um, yeah, kind of waving her off at the gate as she toddles in, and constantly checking There's an app that tells you they've been doing circle time and singing and dancing and colouring in and things like that. So, yeah, that's my day. Feels like a milestone. How are you, Doug?
Oh, my day is testing my mental toughness. Let's put it that way. It's been one thing after another, but I'm really looking forward to this session.
Do you remember sending your ones off to play school for the first time? Like,
I do, but I think what I remember is my wife having tears in her eyes and getting very,
yeah,
very emotional about it.
yeah, yeah. Of course, it would have been all Victorian wear and caves and things like that back then, wouldn't it? But
Thank you, John.
sorry, mate. Sorry. We've a good one lined up today, haven't we? Who have we got?
Right, so we've got two guests. We've got Peter Sewell, who is the postgraduate careers manager at Lancaster University. But sort of more widely than that, he's known the world over as a leading authority on graduate employability. And he gets invited to speak at conferences all over the world. So we're really pleased that he's come to speak with us today. So I know for a fact he's spoken in China and Australia, as well as Europe. He's actually the developer of the career edge model. But he also collaborates with AQR in bringing the mental toughness concept to that world of employability. We've also got Alessia Mevoli. I hope I pronounced that surname correctly. Alessia is the lecturer in the Faculty of Business and Law at Anglia Ruskin University. And what we're going to be exploring today is Alessia's taken the lead on a remarkable initiative, developing a certificate for professional development for undergraduates. It's a program designed to enable students to be work ready. And, you know, when you hear employers talking about the work readiness of students, this sort of thing is really welcomed and in the sense is overdue. And it's a truly comprehensive program, which has as its heart the mental toughness concept and measure. And that's what we're going to look at today. So welcome to both of you, Peter and Alessia. How are you both?
Hi, Doug. I'm fine, thank you. Good to see you.
Hello, Doug. Yeah, all good here too. Yeah, very pleased to be here today.
Well, I think let's kick off because I think we'll start off with Alessia and we'll ask you, what is it that you've been doing with this certificate for professional development and why was mental toughness so significant?
Thanks for the question. And really, I'm very happy to be talking about this because I believe that our university, Anglia Ruskin University in Cambridge, is something that is really helping our students to feel more employable and to feel ready for the job market. So what did we do? So we started by thinking about how we could help our students to feel more employable, to feel ready for the workplace upon graduation. And we undertook some market research and just find out that employers want graduates with three main skills: communication, agility, and adaptability. And all of these is part of resilience. So they want graduates that are more resilient when they graduate and they go out there and work. So we tried to think about how we could help our students really within the Faculty of Business and Law initially to to feel they possess those skills and to equip them with these skill sets. And we launched a program which is called, as you were saying though, is called ARUCPD, which stands for Anglia Ruskin University Certificate for Professional Development. It's a very comprehensive program of about, if I'm not mistaken, from 15 to 20 extracurricular modules in which we help students to acquire those cutting edge, those skills that are needed upon graduation. One of them is the so-called Mental Agility, Flexibility and Adaptability module, the so-called MAPA module, which has been designed and developed upon the mental toughness concept. So how did we do all of this? It's very interesting because we wanted to help our students to be more resilient, to be more flexible and to be more adaptable, but where to start from? So our Deputy Dean of Education actually got in touch with Peter. That is working with you at AQR, and we found out that you had a training program on mental toughness. And myself, as staff member, with other 2 people in our department, undertook the training. And we thought that, it really helped us to appreciate why we were behaving in certain ways, why us as individuals had default mental responses to certain circumstances. And it helped us to work better within our teams, to work better ourselves. So we thought, why not doing this for our students? Why not helping our student population to benefit from this? And I personally got involved into designing the program, the Mental Agility program, upon which in like 8 weeks course, we help students to discover the 4 components of mental toughness, undertake a very deep self-awareness journey throughout the course in analyzing their own level of mental toughness by undertaking the MTQ Plus questionnaire from AQR and developing a personal development plan at the very end of it as like a plan moving forward when the course finishes. So we can see here that we've taken a concept and we have developed and designed a program from that concept, and we have students constantly feedbacking and helping us shaping the program with student champions, mental agility champions, helping us to develop more case studies and real life experiences and scenarios for the future cohorts. So it's always in development, it's always changing, but what's really helping us to keep this project alive and developing it and running it in the next terms is the impact it's making on our students. Our students are really appreciating why they act in certain ways and why their default mental response to certain circumstances is the response they have without appreciating it before doing the course, and now thinking whether they'd like to improve it or they'd like to, just appreciate it better and develop further or not. So, it's, I can talk about it for ages, but I'll stop it here because I'm sure you will have other questions to ask. But in a nutshell, this is the Mental Agility program. So helping students to be the best version of themselves through the mental toughness framework and the MTQ Plus questionnaire to find where their weaknesses lie, if they've got any weaknesses, or where the point of strengths are, and apply these to the workplace once they graduate.
Yeah, wow, that sounds great actually. And having spent the last 17, 18 years working in universities, I can absolutely see the value of that. And it's great that you've managed to get buy-in to it. That's the real challenge, isn't it? But I wonder then, what's been it seems like you've had some good successes early on in the project, and I know you said you're still kind of developing it, but from reflecting on the project so far, what do you think it is that most resonates with the students in the program? What is it that has the biggest impact in them wanting to make a change or consider ways that they can make a change?
Thanks for this, John. It's a very good question, because what I think our students are reluctant at the beginning is starting a self-awareness journey because they don't know what it can come out of this. They're skeptical sometimes about questioning themselves. They don't know what they can find out. And sometimes they're scared, they are worried. But what's the biggest impact is that they actually think about why they do things. They think about how they can achieve the professional development. They think about how they can grow in practical terms. So I would say that the most impactful thing of this program is the real life, experiences that we try to incorporate in developing the program, and the fact that they can actually develop smart objectives for them to move forward. And it's not just an 8 weeks program itself. Students can then become champions for the program, as I mentioned, so they can help enhance the program. Students can inform their peers in other faculties, and this is what I'd like to do in the next couple of terms. I would like to see if we can expand this offer to the university more widely, because for now it's for our business and law students. But generally, I do believe that any student at any different level would benefit from really incorporating the concepts of mental toughness and working on the mental resilience and positivity. Because as we know, it's about seeing and seizing opportunities, right? So opportunities may be there, but students may not see them. So I feel like the key here is helping students to understand that they have potential, they have skills. They need to find out, they have it. They have to be aware that they can seize these opportunities out there, because I think this is one of the most challenging things. But once students start to, really understand deeply, what they stand for, what their behavior is, what they like, if we want, they really can seize these opportunities. So, there's lots to work in there in terms of expanding these to the wider community. But we have got now more than 80 students, I feel, in the program thus far. And he has got, we have got 100% levels of satisfaction. So, I think it's it's impactful, isn't it?
100% satisfaction is always pretty good. Always pretty good. But what I really like about the sound of it, Alessia, is it kind of culminates in them developing their own action plan, and everything you're describing in this kind of self-awareness journey. What I really love about what you're saying is that this isn't a set of off-the-shelf toolkits. I teach you to do some breathing, we set some goals, bing bang bosh, and everybody goes on the same. But it feels like it's more empowering in terms of, here's the awareness, here's who you are, and give people the sense of now how do you develop that? How do you go about taking that on? Is that something in the design that you wanted it to be, kind of more empowering and student-led, rather than almost a series of set seminars that tells them what to do?
Definitely, 100%. And I feel like my biggest challenge a year ago when I started designing the program was exactly this: having a great concept there, lots of research around mental toughness, a great framework, having a questionnaire that I wanted students to undertake and then build their reflection upon this, because they do write a reflective element as well, was trying to make sure, the student element was embedded into it. It wasn't easy to design, a module from scratch, starting from a concept and applying to the HE context. And especially for students at different level, because we target all students from level 4 to level 5, 6, level 7, and PhD students. So my students cohorts are quite varied. And the challenge is that sometimes you have to make sure that you speak the same language across the different levels, and you have to make sure the students interact with each other. And John, if I have to be honest, another challenge was the hybrid delivery mode, because it was launched in the middle of the pandemic, right? And I had students joining from home, and I had students joining from the classroom, and that's just me. So how do I manage this? It was interesting to see how actually students in breakout rooms on Zoom could at the same time work with students in our classroom by nominating a team lead in the classroom. I managed to have this interaction between students at home and students in the classroom at the same time. I deliberately wanted to run the sessions together simultaneously simultaneously. I didn't want to just have like students online and students on campus, because I thought they would miss on the interaction bit. And I also wanted to try and see, you know, how students react to concepts, if it's delivered remotely or if it's delivered in the classroom, and how this type of interaction could help them. So definitely in designing a module like this in an 8-week program, because the program is basically 8 weeks, you know, from 8 to 9 weeks, it depends if we do a revision week. You know, it's tricky, because you want to give them some theoretical knowledge. They have to appreciate where the concepts come from, what mental toughness is, the framework, research around it. But I want also them to put their input into the concept, their input into what control, challenge, commitment, confidence means to them at professional level, at a personal level. So it's definitely challenging, but I think we've managed to make it. To an extent, we managed to, give students the freedom to give the inputs into the program whilst still following a curriculum, and meeting our learning outcomes. But definitely, I feel like the students' input into this is the key to the success of a program like this, because if it was to be more of a tutor-led module in terms of like lecture-based or seminar-based, it wouldn't have the impact, as far as my experience is concerned, of course. Then anybody can disagree with that. But as far as my experience is concerned, wouldn't make the same impact, because students wouldn't challenge themselves to think about themselves and act on themselves.
That's really, really interesting, Alessia. We'll come back to you in a minute, because I'm interested to know how they responded to the questionnaire. But it's be useful to bring Peter Sewell into the discussion, because Peter, you've got a lot of expertise around employability, and this, to me, sounds like a super employability program. So you've been involved in shaping it and developing it. What is so special about this program that's producing these results?
Yeah, no, I have to admit, I was very fortunate in being involved in this project right from the early outset. Alessia mentioned the assistant dean of the school, who got involved and was very interested in this research that they'd been doing into what employability was from an employer's point of view. And he actually contacted me. I mean, I was in contact with him loosely because I'd done some work with him some years ago. But it was a really amazing thing to be able to talk to him about this project, and then to sort of explain that we've got this system built around mental toughness and mental toughness questionnaire that could help to kind of deliver the objectives of the program. Well, to cut the long story short, essentially, I sort of did a presentation about mental toughness to him and his team, and the next thing was they decided to go with it. Now, it was very significant that John said, oh, amazing that you got the buy-in, because in my experience in universities, that is an absolutely critical aspect of this. I as a practitioner or careers person or a lecturer or whatever, I could say I really want to do this stuff. But if you don't get buy-in at a more senior level, very often it's not going to go very far. Not least because there are obviously costs attached to this. But I mean, obviously, if you're designing a new module, generally speaking, that's going to have some kind of budget. But the point is that you do have to have that buy-in from somebody more senior. And I'm fortunate to say the person who we're talking about obviously immediately took to the 4 C's concept. And could see how that could fit into this module that they were proposing around mental agility. He was very keen to stick with this terminology of mental agility rather than mental toughness. But I think that, well, Alessia might explain a bit more, but I think that was at least in part because that was the terminology that had come directly from their research with employers. So, but then I think the really amazing thing, and the thing, it's been a great pleasure working with Alessia and her colleagues on this project, was the way they absolutely went for it and completely 100%. They got people trained up in it. They came up with an idea of developing student champions to kind of work with them, to help them through those difficult periods, like when it was being done with dual delivery and so forth. And then the sort of enthusiasm in which they've engaged with developing this really new innovative program from start to finish, and continuing, sort of onward development, continuing development, and now sort of looking at how they can do sort of maybe more longer term research to kind of look at getting data about actual impact. And for me, it's really, really exciting as well, because as you know, I recently wrote a book chapter about using mental toughness in higher education and measuring impact. And I'll be honest, this was really what I had in mind. It's like they've done it. It's done to such a high standard. It's really an amazing story, truly exciting way of implementing and taking advantage of the 4Cs structure in a higher education context. And the other thing, and Alessia is being very modest, because although it's absolutely true, it's really important to get that involvement with the students, because that's what really makes it special. But it's also really important that people who are delivering it, it's got to be people who have bought into it in the same kind of way.
I can say that we couldn't have managed to do it if it wasn't for the support that we got, Peter, first of all, from you as a link, between us and AQR and training our staff. And with the training that we got from AQR, because I wouldn't have been able to design, a program like this if I hadn't got the knowledge to do so. So for anybody who's interested in the concept and who is now listening to this podcast, I would 100% recommend to undertake the training AQR offers, because I do believe it's something that really, really helps you to get your head around the concept, and maybe even, trigger your thinking into thinking about potential further development of the concept as well, because we know we have got research going on still on the concept of mental toughness. It's never going to end. So maybe people might feel like, well, it's helping me to stimulate, trigger my thinking into adding more on the concept. So if you're interested or triggered by what we are saying, I would definitely recommend, to have a look at what's out there from AQR on the mental toughness training, questionnaire, or other tools, because I personally found them very beneficial, not only for my professional career, because it helped me to develop and design and deliver a successful module thus far, but for my personal growth as well as an individual. So that's an experience that I wanted to share.
Oh, I agree with Peter at one level. It's you are quite modest about your achievements, but all you have to do is listen to you, Alessia, and you can see where the oomph comes from. Well, I'm interested. I'm just going to switch subject again a little. One of the things that we often find when people first adopt the mental toughness concept, they often get a degree of resistance to using the questionnaire. And we've seen this in higher education. But you seem to have achieved pretty good success with people buying into it, completing the questionnaire, relating to the feedback. Tell us a little bit about that. How did you manage that?
I think the key here, Doug, is explaining to the students that they're not just undertaking, a questionnaire assessing their own level of mental toughness, and that's it. That we get a developmental report alongside it, so that we get practical suggestions on what their results means, and an explanation of why they've got certain default mental responses to circumstances, and what it translates into in terms of their professional and personal life. So it's not just a questionnaire that you undertake, you got a score, and that's it. It's what comes with it. It's the developmental aspect that comes with it, and it's the fact that students need to be aware of the fact that if they score, let's say, kind of a low, if we can say low, score on mental toughness, it's not bad at all. It means they're mentally sensitive. And the people can think the opposite of mental toughness, well, mental weakness. No, that's 100% wrong. It's mental sensitivity. People need to appreciate that in some components of mental toughness, they might be more sensible, and that's sensitive, and that's fair enough. They just have to know it so that they understand why they behave the way they behave. And if they want to change the mental response to this, fair enough, they will work on developments that are also suggested on the questionnaire to improve it. If they're happy with the way in which their default mental response is, and they are aware it's a sign of sensitivity in that area, that's fair enough as well. It's about helping people, in this case students, to be the best version of themselves, to take advantage of their full potential, you know, to equip themselves with awareness of where the skills lie. So for me, I think the selling point to students of the questionnaire is actually explaining the entire concept. Is actually helping students to understand, well, if you go 1 out of 10 on mental toughness, what does it mean? And we don't have to look at the mental toughness result just as it is an overall result. We have to look at the components. Mental toughness comprises of 4 different C's, and each C has got 2 subcomponents. So it's the interlink between the components that's the key of understanding a behavior and understanding an eventual development, you know. So I feel like the visualizing it in a questionnaire is what helps students as well, really understanding the concept and really working on its development. Because if we think about mental toughness as 4 separate C's, as 4 separate components, well, I think we have to go back and do the training again because there's something wrong in it. It's all interlinked, and that's what I think like helps my students to understand why they do the questionnaire in week 4. So they do the questionnaire at the middle of the module, because it's from there that they start to work on development. I don't want them to do at the very beginning because they wouldn't have got an understanding of mental toughness, which they need. And I wouldn't want them to do at the very end because they can't work on setting smart developmental objectives. So that's why I'd like them to do at the very middle of the module. I hope he answers your question.
It's done that, certainly. I think you'll find that John is probably purring at your description of the independence of the factors and their interrelationship.
Yeah, absolutely. It's one of the things that I suppose I always give people advice on in terms of interpreting a mental toughness report, development report, that actually it's less about whether the scores are high, medium or low, but it's how they are relative to other scores, you know. So it's somebody one that I see in my area a lot in sport would be people who have a really high achievement orientation relative to their confidence in abilities. Now, it might not be that either of them are particularly high or low, but what that tells me a story about someone who will work and work and work, but they probably have a slight perfectionist tendency whereby unless something is absolutely perfect, they don't believe they've been successful. So that kind of has an impact on their confidence. Now, that they might come out as a 5 and a 7 or a 5 and an 8 on a report, and you don't necessarily jump out and go, wow. But actually, it's when you've dealt with so many, you start to see those kind of little interrelationships that tell the really interesting stories. And I will get to a question. So I was going to ask, so this is in a management law school or department, right? Is there anything specific about students and graduates in that area regards mental toughness, mental agility, or could it just as easily be rolled out into any other sector as well? And I think either Alessia or Peter might be best
both.
Yeah.
Yeah, well, we've sort of discussed this a bit, but I think Alessia, you could probably give some illustrations from your experience. I know, I think when I spoke to one of your colleagues, Dan, they were saying how it had been particularly helpful for the law students in helping them understand aspects of confidence, for example, when they have to do practicing, you know, making presentations in a courtroom, you know, that kind of thing. But I'm sure, again, in addition to particular aspects of work in a business school or a law school, you have had some experience, I think, in talking to students in other schools, which I must admit, you know, I was kind of interested in hearing a bit about your experience of dealing with these concepts in other departments and schools.
Yeah, sure. So I feel like I don't see any objection into like rolling the program outside of the business and law school. I actually believe it's going to be beneficial, for any students at any level of the study, simply because, as we have described it, it's a self-awareness journey, and it's helping students to be the best version of themselves, make use of their potential, right? I feel like it's working well for our faculty of business and law, because we have embedded it into a program, an extracurricular program, which students got 15 credits, so it's accredited. It goes into their transcript, so it's approved at university level. So it's not just a program they undertake and get a certificate of completion. They got 15 credits for doing it, and they can prove to employer through the transcripts. We embedded employability into it, and that's where the credit goes to Peter, because we have invited Peter a few times to talk to our students and go that step further. I was giving them a background of the concept. I was explaining why it's important. I was coaching them into developing like objectives, starting from the questionnaire. And then Peter comes in and explains why it's linked to employability, how they can apply these concepts to help them, look more employable. And that's where I feel like having a sort of employability session on mental toughness, as the one we got with Peter, that helped us a lot with self-awareness, like the Johari window. You remember, Peter, I really loved like when you talked about eating the elephant, frameworks and all of this stuff. It helped our students. So I feel like you worked well within the business and law faculty thus far, because it's embedded into more of a long-term projection. Now, I like challenges, right? I love experimenting. I love going out of my comfort zone. So I got the chance to, kind of taste this program with like another group of students, the criminology department of our faculty, because as part of another project, I could deliver a couple of sessions on self-awareness. And what's better than mental toughness than triggering your self-awareness? So I put mental toughness into it. And I had a couple of sessions with this cohort, and my experience was slightly different. If I have to be honest, I found a lot more resistance from students. Students were a little bit skeptical, a little bit unsure why they had to study it, because they were to tell me, I'm sorry, but I don't understand how it relates to solving crimes, or I don't understand why it relates to, my laws that I'm studying in politics. And I'm like, okay, well, so I've got good work to do here to make students appreciate why they have to do it. And I feel like I've trialed it. So I didn't have a lot of time. I couldn't deliver the program because I only had a few hours. And after these 3 sessions, actually students told me, well, I can see the benefit now. So what was the key was explaining the concept of mental toughness, the concept of agility and self-awareness goes above and beyond any subject matter. It's interdisciplinary, it's linked, Indeed, we've seen applications of this in sports sciences. There must be a reason why, right? So it was important to explain to students why we were doing this. And after an initial hindrances towards undertaking like an analysis, they couldn't take the questionnaire because it wasn't me delivering the program. It was just, giving an overview of mental toughness. They actually were interested in doing it. So the next steps, I'm now disclosing it. The next steps would be seeing how we can do it at university level, how we can engage other faculties, to deliver this program on a bigger scale. Because for now, the ARUCPD is only offered to our business and law faculty, but I definitely see the benefit of offering to all students because of the cross-disciplinary, interdisciplinary nature of the concept itself. Of course, I might have people objecting it. I might have people being reluctant to it. I might have people saying, well, why should we invest in a program like this? And what's the benefit? Well, we can talk about the benefits, endlessly, but I feel like the benefit is exactly this: empowering people, empowering young professionals, into understanding, at least in higher education. Then the application of this concept goes at all levels, senior management. I know you, Peter, have applied this to senior management and whatever, but at least higher educational level, helping students, to really, really understand who they are, what they stand for, and how they can develop. So I don't see why it should be restricted to a subject matter. This was a long answer to a short question, so I'm sorry for this.
You're such a good guest, Alessia, because every time I think of a question, you actually ask yourself the question and then go on and answer it. So it makes our job really easy. So it's great to listen to. One of the sort of frustrations I know you can come across working in university settings, and sometimes I think we can be a little bit guilty of this in all levels of education, is where on one hand we'll bemoan that students are too modularized, they're too much about their program, they're too assessment focused. The question in the seminar, is this going to be in the exam? And you just think, no, you're here to learn and everything. But then actually it's where that kind of just difficulties in the administration of saying, well, we want to do something that's more about the kind of employability skills we want to develop in our graduates. Surely that should be at the center of a program. And I really like this concept of rating higher education programs, of designing down. Okay, so rather than just saying, oh, we're doing a criminology course, let's pick some modules. You decide what do you want your students to be able to do at the end of the first year, second year, third year, when they graduate. And then you go, well, what kind of assessments do they need to do to show that they're able to achieve those outcomes? And then once you've got that, you'll know what to actually teach them, what to do. Whereas we sort of start the wrong way around with it. We start by saying, well, let's cover theory X and case Y, and then come up with a way of assessing it. And then where do they end up? And then we end up surprised that employers are saying, this isn't what we want in a graduate. So what I really like is that through the project you were doing as a faculty, you've started from that top, where do they end up? And it sounds so common sense, and people might be shocked to hear that this doesn't happen this way in universities. You start, where are they going to be at the end? Right, well, let's put something in place to help them get there. And I know from my own experiences, it is so rare, and it's just a different way of thinking about things that sort of becomes the challenges. But I think the more we can have people like yourselves beating the drum, the happier we'll be. Have you approached any other institutions, Peter?
Well, a few, and I have to say it depends on. It goes back to what I was saying before, that it's all about getting the right connections and contacts and going in and getting agreement at the right level. And I mean, I know for a fact, Doug, you had a big involvement with Manchester Metropolitan University on was it a kind of similar? It was a similar sort of thing in as far as they were planning to do it right across the university. Isn't that right?
I think we had a pilot project, but it's a very large-scale pilot project, and the plan was to evaluate that. And unfortunately, COVID got in the way of that. And so it was a long-term project. It was a 5-year project, but COVID put a big hole in the middle of it, and I had to go back to start, or work out how to get past that point.
Yeah, I mean, we have used it at Lancaster University. With certain courses that as you heard from the beginning, I'm the postgraduate careers manager in the management school. So I've used the questionnaire and the reports with MSc International Business and Strategy students. And one particularly interesting group was when I had the opportunity to do it with the International Masters Program for Managers, which is a very unusual program because it is, as the name says, it's international. So it involves students based in Montreal, Yokohama, Rio de Janeiro, Bangalore. So it's very international, but they're all senior managers and they're all involved in big organizations. This is the opposite end of the scale, really, to the group that Alessia has been working on. These are managers who've been there, done it all, and now what they're doing is sort of stepping back and thinking about how to go to the next level. So this is what's really interesting about it. It's as relevant and helpful for those people, judging by what they've said about it, as it is to these younger students. And I think that's really exciting. But in terms of going back to your original question, I think the point is, as I said, it's all about getting buy-in. And one of the beauties of the situation that arose at Anglia Ruskin was that it started, and you hit the nail on the head, John, I think, when you said it's doing it the other way around. They went to find out what employers in their region were saying they were looking for in graduates. And then they set about designing a program that would help the students get those qualities that the employers said that they were looking for. And I think that is why they've come up with something which is so, well, one, unusual, two, apparently very effective, three, very popular with the students, and four, seemingly beginning to deliver the thing that they set out to provide. And then, as I said, the key to the success is another of other important things: buy-in from senior management so that they're completely on board with the approach, the technology, the acknowledging there are some costs, but seeing that those costs are part of the value that they're providing. And then, having a team like Alessia's worked with that can kind of deliver to such a high standard the project and the outcomes. So it's not having a number of things in place. It's not just like a kind of one step thing. That project, I think, exemplifies what needs to be done. And I think, as I said, when I tried writing about how you could use this in higher education, those were the points that I was sort of beginning to recognize. But the project at ARU is a personification of all of those important points. So I feel really privileged to have been part of working with them on that, because I think they've done an amazing job.
Yeah, well, I've been very excited looking at it from a distance. So I'm going to address a variation of John's earlier question to you, Alessia, but I'm picking up a question that Peter asked me earlier. Peter asked, do we take it to other institutions? We've actually, worldwide, we've taken it to a number of higher education institutions. And there's an issue about sustainability, but we have actually taken it to another law faculty in another UK university. But they didn't look at it from the perspective of employability. They looked at it from the perspective of well-being. They found that students, especially in the middle years of a program, could struggle a great deal. And so their focus was on well-being. Have you come across any demand for that, or thoughts about perhaps developing a version of the program to address that?
Actually, it's very interesting that you mentioned this, Doug, because last week we were analyzing a bit of the results we got from students on the MTQ+, and what we found out, and now releasing some data here, is that level 5 are the ones who seems to dip a little. They feel they're not in control of their life as much as level 6 are. So this is coming from results of the questionnaire. So life control is actually very low in our student population, at level 5 amongst the cohorts that have undertaken the program. And even though, I've got data in here, even though they've got a good level of achievement orientation and goal orientation, it seems like the confidence and control are the ones, they are quite, needs a little bit to work on. And this can be linked very clearly with well-being, wouldn't it? Like if you're not in control of your life, or you're not in control, of what you do, like you can easily stress out. So how you manage stressors and pressures to make sure they're actually, understanding how you can turn a situation from a negative stance to a positive stance. So we haven't applied it from a well-being point of view as such yet, but I'm very interested into investigating, like the concepts more from this perspective moving forward, especially because of the data that backs this up. But one thing that we're doing is now in the pipeline is we are trying to see how this program could benefit students at college level. So students that are doing their A levels, their GCSEs, they still haven't gone into education. So trying to think how we can target a different student group. And we are now working on a partnership with a college in Cambridge to see if I can deliver this program to their students, and they would get credits to bring forward in case they want to join ARU. So we can see double benefit here. We can see like students starting to think about self-awareness, students to start to think about their well-being, their control, commitment, challenge, and confidence before making that change, before making the transition to go into universities, to try to help them be prepared earlier on. Plus, we try to link these colleges with the university through a partnership and accrediting it, and then they can bring it forward when they join the university. So it's still in the pipeline, but I feel like this could be another way of looking at a program like this.
Absolutely. And what you're discovering, Alessia, is what we've kind of learned over the years. We have to do it piece by piece, but we go into secondary education. We start at year 9, 10, 11, 12, because they're the exam years. And then bit by bit, people realize you should be looking at mental toughness development much earlier. So they start looking at year 7. Then some schools say, oh, we're not getting the right students in the right frame of mind. Let's talk to our feeder schools. And before you know where you are, Alessia, you're going to be dealing with infant schools.
You'd be writing children's books, though.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think it's such a good project, and I love the way that then Alessia would encourage students to, when they get to university, that they're already thinking more broadly about their own personal development and not kind of just going through the motions of, okay, this is what I do next. I enroll and then I wait to be molded into something, and that sense of actually taking charge of something. And I think the well-being things are a really interesting area as well, and especially that dip in the middle, because I mean, it was 20 years ago since I was in the middle of my degree, but I used to think that I had it hard compared to the generation before me at university, because I had a part-time job at Pizza Hut for 20 hours a week or whatever. But I look at students now, they've all work a lot of hours because they have to. Finding accommodation is incredibly difficult. And then equally, there's so many graduates relative to jobs now that it's more competitive when you get out the other end as well. So I'll probably come to Peter first. I think if I can politely say, you've been around enough years to have seen a lot of cohorts of students. Do they almost need mental toughness now more than they have done in the past?
I think all of the cohorts of students over the years that I've worked with would have benefited from the kind of insights that you can gain from this. But as I go back to what I was saying about Alessia and her module, it's one thing to do the questionnaire and to get the report, and if you're fortunate, get a bit of feedback from somebody who's qualified to talk to you about it. But the beauty of a program like the MAFA program is that it sort of sets the scene. It explains how this could be valuable. They then engage with it. They then learn from it, and then they get a chance to reflect back and think about what they can do next as a process of development. So it's the fact that it's packaged in that 8-week or 9-week program that I think makes it especially valuable.
Well, I think that's probably a good point at which to stop. I think what you've described is fascinating, and it's been fantastic listening to both of you. And I'm pretty sure that we will ask you to come back because, as Alessia's mentioned, you are now looking at creating a piece of research around it and eventually perhaps producing a paper on the success of this project. So I'm sure there'll be people very interested to know about that. And there'll also be people interested to know about the ways that you develop and tweak the model, particularly with the students. But for me, there have been a couple of takeaways, in fact, several takeaways. The first one was that here is a genuine attempt at focusing on preparing students for the world of work. As Peter said, quite often we've been approached by universities and we've worked with universities, but in a sense they pay lip service to the idea of employability. It's often a rehash of old-fashioned career guidance. It's not really understood in the way that you've understood it and the way you're developing it. And it's also interesting that you've captured something that we work hard at capturing, and that's that it's focused on the student, and it's focused on understanding mental toughness from their own perspective in terms of what they want to achieve. I think that's a tremendous achievement. And then the way you've engaged your clients, your students, in shaping what you're doing, I think is also really valuable. And I think there's a lot of trainers and coaches out there in the world at large who could learn from that. And they often think they're the experts. I'm going to tell you something, or I'm going to do something with you. Well, actually, you're working with the person, not at the person. So there are three really valuable things that have come out of it for me.
Yeah, I'd echo those. I think particularly the sense that I think it's so easy to go down the route of this really prescribed program of jump through hoop X, Y, and Z, and then you'll be tougher. So I really like the way that it's structured around this, as you said right at the very start of this year, like the journey of self-awareness. And look, I'm sure any employers listening will take a second look at those CVs that say I've come from the Faculty of Business and Law at ARU. So look, it's been lovely to meet and lovely to talk. Thanks very much.
Okay, so I'm sure there are going to be people interested. You may well find that there are other universities suddenly paying some attention to this. So if somebody wanted to get hold of both of you, how would they get hold of you? How would they get hold of you, Alessia?
So I've got a LinkedIn profile, which I monitor closely. So if you want to drop me a direct message on LinkedIn, you can get hold of me on LinkedIn, or I'm happy to share my email address if it's of any use at all, so they can get hold of me in this way.
Okay, we'll add the email address to the podcast. And Peter?
Yeah, likewise with me. LinkedIn's the most obvious and easy way. I check that regularly. But obviously as well, I've got a direct connection with AQR International, so you can always email me via AQR International.
Brilliant, brilliant. Well, thank you both. It's always an experience working with you, Alessia. Thank you very, very much.
Thanks, everybody.
Thanks, everybody.